Today I'm here to talk about building iOS apps with Claude in the terminal. My name is Janidu Wanigasuriya. You can just call me Johnny. It's much easier. So who am I? I'm currently working as a senior mobile engineer working for Xero, and I've been a dev for 15 years now. Previously, I worked at companies such as HireUp, REA in Australia. I've been in Australia for the last 10 years, and in my free time, I like to play music, and I've started collecting records in the last 2 years, so if you know any good places to hunt for very rare vinyls, just let me know. And today is like a special day for me because my first meetup in Australia was CocoaHeads, and I always had this goal that I need to come and do a presentation, and it took me 10 years. And anyway, I'm here now. I wish I had a picture of attending CocoaHeads 10 years ago, but the only picture that I could find was attending my first hackathon in Australia. So you might see some familiar faces over there. That was called Random Hacks of Kindness. Has anyone attended that? I'm not sure if it's still run, but yeah, really cool hackathon. Cool. So building iOS with Claude. Today my agenda is to actually talk about the why, like why would you leverage building iOS apps purely from the terminal, and why is it important to steer the agent. I had so much AI anxiety when like Claude came out and people are just building apps, shipping, I don't know, 5 apps a month. And why is it important to manage context? And also, I'm going to show an example application today. So how would you leverage skills and MCP servers when you're building using Claude? And I'll also show my workflow today as well. So why is it so important? In my experience, I feel like AI has become very powerful at writing code. And if you see the example of the screenshot over there, that's kind of like an app that I built in like just a couple of hours using Claude. So it has become very, very powerful. But steering the agent has become even more important. So you need to steer the AI agents, in order to produce a good result. So I see this as 3 different stages. So you would have the context stage, implementation stage, and also the verify stage. So what I mean by context is how do we provide as much information to the coding agent, and the implementation stage is where we need to verify the input and the output that the agent is producing, and the verification is how do we enable the AI agent to verify its own output. So what's actually context? Context is everything that the agent knows about your current session. So if you are developing an app, the context is going to be all of your code base, any of the MCP servers that you're running, and also the memory and the skill files. The more the context gets filled, the agent output can get degraded. So that we call this context rot. So the app that I'm going to be talking today is called Welcome to Melbourne. So if back in the day, like 10 years ago, if I came to Australia, this is probably like the app that I would develop. And the first thing that I did in order to give the agent as much more context is to come up with a design. So if you see the video over here is, I'm really sorry, like the text input is really tiny. So create a Figma design for an app called Welcome to Melbourne. Include these sections, find the best coffee places, find a job, which is really important, find the best meetup groups to find friends, and also find some record stores. So now you can see that the agent is invoking the Figma MCP, and then going into the next stage of creating the design. So it asks, okay, what kind of an aesthetic would you like for the app? So something that is warm and vibrant. So it pretty much tried to create the design based on the prompt that we gave it. So it came up with this beautiful design, but we are all native engineers here, and you would notice that that's not a native design. So something is missing in the prompt that we provided it. So the next step that I did was, how do we actually steer the agent to produce a native looking app? So I leverage, I'm really sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this word, but Susum.ai, which is essentially an MCP server that has access to all of the Apple documentations in a way that the agent can read it easily. And I also pointed it to the iOS 26 Figma design kit. So now you would see in this screenshot, the output that the agent produces is much more like a native app. It's using liquid glass. It looks like an actual native app. The next part of this whole journey is to give the design into some kind of a requirement form. So I've been using a lot of the skills by Matt Pocock, which he's kind of like, I find him to be one of the thought leaders currently in AI development space. So I essentially use two issues by Matt to record these the design from Figma into GitHub. So this is kind of like the backlog that you would see here. So scaffold the project with Xcode Gen using iOS 26, come up with some kind of a design token system so that we can easily cater light mode and dark mode, build some kind of shared UI components. I'll be able to go through the GitHub issues later on. So when it comes to the implementation stage, in order to manage the context, I pretty much ask the agent to go and pick up issues from GitHub. So you can see it doing this now. And in order to scaffold the project, I use Xcode Gen. So Xcode Gen is a way that you can template a project structure. And because I'm interacting less with Xcode, you can use a tool called Xcode Build MCP. Has anyone used that in the past? So Xcode Build MCP is essentially an MCP server that can interact with Xcode without any kind of UI. And in order to manage the context, so context, I kind of think about it as like a AI engineer with some kind of memory. And when you are building a very complex or like a project, you need to have different subagents working for you so that each and every subagent has a limited amount of context. And I also leverage worktrees so that agents are not conflicting with each other. So with the verification stage, I ask the agents to pretty much use TDD. So any kind of code that they're building, they're able to verify it on their own. And also with Xcode Build MCP, it can directly invoke the simulator and capture the screens via the accessibility APIs. So now it's time for the demo. All right, so, oops. There we go. Cool. So this is the app that I worked on yesterday. So you can see that the agent produced this app pretty much entirely from the terminal, and it used the Figma design, and the data store at the moment is just like a bundled JSON file. So you can see, would we agree that these are like probably the best coffee places?
Oh dear.
That's going to be a big debate. And of course, like when it comes to recommended meetups, you have to have Melbourne CocoaHeads over here, and record places, record stores. I'm still discovering like what's the best places to hunt for vinyls. So, and if I open up my terminal now, so this app was pretty much developed entirely using the terminal. We have frustrations with Xcode. I do too, and I still have a soft spot for Xcode. But when it comes to day-to-day development, even at work, some of the engineers, including me, we are pretty much not touching Xcode anymore and trying to steer the agent to produce good quality code, and kind of like mostly verifying the end output via manual tests and also via the tests. So right now I can it's a bit weird. So, because I probably don't have access to internet right now, but pretty much you don't need to even open up Xcode to run the app. You can pretty much drive it entirely through the terminal. And the main driver for this is Xcode build MCP. So if you don't have that MCP server installed, you can also use the native MCP server that is inbuilt with Xcode, but it's quite limited compared to Xcode built MCP. So that was the demo. I think I'm ready to say bye for now. I'll be back with another talk, I guess. Any questions? And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Johnny. Any questions in the room? Gareth?
Thank you. Yeah, really enjoyed that. Thank you. Is it going to be another 10 years until your next talk?
I hope not.
Have you ever used Claude Design as part of you kind of went for Figma? The kind of Claude Design has come out pretty recently. Have you used that or had any experience of using that?
No. So at the moment, I'm primarily using Figma for like any kind of design inputs. Did you say Claude Design?
Claude Design, yeah.
Right. I've heard really good things about Claude Design, but I haven't used it yet.
Yeah, I've used it very recently for AI-ifying a website I'm building, and to kind of stop that generic look that all AI websites look like. So it's been pretty good for that.
Cool.
Okay, good talk, Yanni. Thanks for giving it. Couple of questions. First, with Figma MCP, did you use any extra skills involved in that to get your initial designs?
Yeah, really good question. So just with the Figma MCP, I haven't been able to get really good designs. So I use a skill called impeccable designs. I think it's available just in skills.sh, and that has actually given like very unique designs. And recently, even at work, folks have been just using HTML as like a slide deck. So with the impeccable skill, you can actually create Figma designs as well as even really cool slide decks. So that is something that you can, if you just install that skill, when you are building a UI interface, it's automatically going to get pulled into it.
Cool. Always good to learn about these different skills and approaches. Second one is, have you played around with Xcode 27 betas, and have you found that their interactions with Claude and with the MCP server it provides, is that enough to sort of pull you back from the terminal?
Thank you. I haven't played around with it yet. I saw that there are like a couple of dedicated talks pretty much on agentic development. So would be definitely keeping an eye on it. And I think also one of the cool thing about using the terminal is that you can spin up like multiple agents. I think Andy in the CocoaHeads channel recommended using CMOX. It also, I think for me, has a bit more of like a control aspect. And also when you are working at work, there are other skills that other engineers have incorporated, which I feel that can be invoked via the terminal, but I don't have like a strong reason that I'm gonna totally ditch Xcode. And like with the earlier talk, with like things like instruments, memory graph debugger, that's all available within Xcode. Just to add with the memory leak investigation, one cool thing that I didn't think it was gonna work, but in one of the apps that I'm working on, there's like Objective-C dependencies, and like the memory graph is like very, very complex. I actually took a screenshot of the memory graph debugger when I was trying to find a leak and gave it to Claude, and it was able to exactly say where the retain cycle was, which was really like a mind-blown moment. So these tools are getting quite powerful, and I don't think our engineering jobs are gonna go away. Sorry, I'm going in a tangent, but I think it's becoming more and more important that you have solid foundations, but still need to keep an open mind about what these tools are gonna unlock us.
Thank you, Jenny. Any other questions in the room? No? Applause to Jenny, please.